Welcome to the court's January 2026 swearing-in ceremony. Please keep your audio muted throughout the ceremony. If you wish to follow the speaker, you may want to set your view to speaker view. Mr. Jason LeVay, Chief Deputy Clerk, will offer opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Congratulations to you on reaching this milestone in your legal careers. Again, my name is Jason LeVay. I'm the Chief Deputy Clerk of the Court of Appeals, and I'll be administering the oath this afternoon. When I administer the oath, I'll use the word swear. If you have any objection to saying that word, you can substitute it for affirm. When taking the oath, I ask that you please stand and raise your right hand. And when you finish taking the oath, you can sit down and I'll remind you at that time. So again, congratulations to everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes.
The courtroom clerk will now open the courtroom.
All persons having business before the Honorable Senior Judge, now presiding over the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, draw near and give your attention. God save the United States and this honorable court. This honorable court is now in session. Please come to order.
The Honorable Judge Ruiz will offer introductory remarks.
Good afternoon. I am Vanessa Ruiz, Senior Judge of the District of Columbia Court of Appeals. And on behalf of our Chief Judge, Anna Blackburn Rigsby, and all my colleagues on the court, I am pleased to welcome you, prospective new members of the District of Columbia Bar, as well as your friends and families. Generally, when we hear cases in court, it is a serious and sobering affair. So it is a pleasure to preside over a joyful occasion like this, a swearing-in ceremony. And I can assure you that by the time we finish here today, you will all have prevailed before the court. Just a word about our court. The DC Court of Appeals is a relatively for courts, new court. It was created by Congress in 1970 as the highest court of, not in, the District of Columbia. It's equivalent to the Supreme Court of a state. The court's rulings are reviewable by the Supreme Court of the United States. Our jurisdiction includes review of appeals from all divisions of the district's trial court, the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, as well as appeals from DC administrative agencies. The court created the District of Columbia Bar, and it is our duty to oversee its members, including to rule on motions for the admission of new members. And today, that motion will be made on your behalf by Ms. Ilea Welch, staff attorney for the Committee on Admissions. Ms. Welch?
Thank you, Judge Ruiz. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Committee on Admissions for the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, I, Ilea Welch, staff attorney for the Committee on Admissions for the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, move the admission to the bar of this court, the applicants whose names appear on the attached list and who have satisfied the requirements for admission to the bar of this court. On behalf of the Committee on Admissions, I certify to the court that these applicants possess the necessary qualifications for admission to the bar. Thank you, Judge Ruiz.
Thank you, Ms. Welch. And if you could kindly give that motion to Mr. LeVay, our Chief Deputy Clerk. And because this is virtual, you cannot see that Mr. LeVay has now handed that motion to me for a decision. And while it may appear that I am giving this motion only cursory review, I know that the Committee on Admissions has devoted a great deal of time to your applications, and your name would not have been placed on the list appended to the motion if anything were out of order. So I am pleased on behalf of the court to grant the motion for admission. And Mr. LeVay, if you would kindly administer the oath.
Thank you, Judge Ruiz. Will the applicants please stand, raise your right hand, and please repeat after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear that as a member of the bar of this court, I will demean myself uprightly and according to law, and that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you, and you may be seated.
Thank you, Mr. LeVay. It is a tradition at these swearing-in ceremonies for the presiding judge to make brief remarks, and I will follow that tradition today and take advantage of this captive audience. Now that you have been sworn in, on behalf of the DC Court of Appeals, I extend congratulations and a warm welcome to you to the practice of law in the District of Columbia. You are all our new fellow members of the DC Bar. Judges are members of the DC Bar as well. And I want to congratulate also those who are sharing the moment with someone who just took the oath. I invite you to visit the historic courthouse in person when you have a chance. It is the home of the District of Columbia Court of Appeals. So let me tell you a bit about the courthouse itself before I told you about the court. And I will tell you about where we live. One of the oldest public buildings in DC was originally commissioned as Washington City Hall in 1820. Over the past 200 years, this building has played many roles. It has been federal and district courthouse as the judiciary evolved, including the U.S. Circuit Court, U.S. District Court, Supreme Court of the District of Columbia, U.S. Court of Appeals, and the D.C. Court of General Sessions, which used to be the trial court. It functioned as a hospital, and it held prisoners of war during the Civil War. The building has housed several notable residents, among them Francis Scott Key, whom, as you know, wrote our national anthem. He had an office under our roof. Frederick Douglass' office as U.S. Marshal was in this building. Theodore Roosevelt's office as head of the Civil Service Commission was housed here. More recently, the building housed offices for the Public Defender Service and the DC Attorney General. In 2009, the building was renovated and rededicated as the DC Court of Appeals, and that is what it remains. As a courthouse, it was a setting of several significant trials. In 1849, the prosecution of Daniel Drayton, an abolitionist and orchestrator of the largest recorded escape attempt by slaves aboard the schooner the Pearl. In 1867, John H. Surratt was tried for conspiracy to assassinate President Lincoln, whose statue was erected outside the courthouse in 1868 and it still stands today facing Indiana Avenue. One of the biggest bribery scandals in U.S. history was held in this building. And now today, the courthouse is the virtual setting for your admission to the Bar of the District of Columbia, not a notorious event, but a celebratory one. Your first admission to practice after years of studying hard in law school, and for the bar exam, the bar application process, and probably, unfortunately, also after the accumulation of substantial debt for education loans. Taking the oath and listening to its words, not only with your head, but really inside in your heart, is a good reminder of what it means to be admitted to the practice of law. Let me tell you about the bar, of which you're now a part. Notwithstanding its small size geographically, the District of Columbia is one of the largest bars in the country, if not the largest now, over 100,000 members. It is certainly the largest on a per capita basis. It is a diverse bar, both in terms of its membership and the areas of practice in which its members engage. This court, with the assistance of several committees and disciplinary counsel, has the authority and the responsibility to pass on the admission and the professional conduct of all lawyers in the District of Columbia. We admit lawyers who qualify, such as the distinguished group today. Unfortunately, from time to time, we also must suspend or disbar lawyers who do not live up to the ethical standards of the rules of professional responsibility. It is always a sad, though necessary measure to protect the administration of justice and clients. From this vantage point, I can tell you that the practice of law in this city is probably one of the most varied and exciting in the country. Some of you in this room, in this group, will practice in law firms, small or large. They might be local, national, or international in scope. You may be practicing in government, again, whether local or federal, trade associations, or consulting firms. You may be with a public interest group or a private business. Some of you are or will become litigators, others transactional attorneys, others will engage in analysis and policy work, others in the legislative arena. Some of you will find your practice early on and continue with it for a long time. Others among you, because of developing interests or because of changes in the legal market, will shift your legal practice, perhaps a few times. I hope all of you will take advantage of the size and the diversity of our bar and the variety of opportunities in the District of Columbia for legal work and also for service to our community. You come to practice in the District of Columbia, the nation's capital, at a time that questions government and its institutions. This includes the courts and the judicial system. The careful and fair application of law by courts is essential, but equally essential is the integrity of the lawyers who practice before the courts. At a time when established norms are being altered or bypassed, it is easy to become overwhelmed and confused, especially as you set out. Not all change is bad, but do not be thrown off course what matters. Be guided by your North Stars: honesty, integrity, loyalty to clients, competence, commitment to the rule of law, civility, service to others. Remember the oath you took today and the responsibility it imposes on each one of you as a member of our bar to help instill public confidence in the judicial system by your actions in each case that you handle, in every paper you file, and every court appearance that you make, and whenever you give advice to a client. I love the fact that you're all turning on your videos. It is wonderful to see you. I feel that I'm speaking to real lawyers who will make significant contributions to our bar. Thank you for doing that, and I will continue. Remember also that you are being admitted to practice in the District of Columbia, which is a vibrant community. Real people live and work here. Real people have real needs here, including the need for legal services, for tutoring, and for mentoring. In this connection, I remind you of Rule 6.1 of the Rules of Professional Responsibility, by which your conduct as a member of the DC Bar must be guided. And I'm just going to quote the first sentence of that rule. A lawyer should participate in serving those persons or groups of persons who are unable to pay all or a portion of reasonable attorney's fees or who are otherwise unable to obtain counsel. Resolution adopted by the DC Court's Judicial Conference as well as by the Judicial Conference of the DC Circuit specifies what this professional obligation entails. Each lawyer should accept one court appointment or devote at least 50 hours of pro bono legal services each year to an indigent or disadvantaged client, or if that is not feasible, to make a financial contribution of at least 1% of earned income to organizations that provide pro bono services. I suggest that you do both. Provide legal services, make a financial contribution if you're able to do so. The need is great. many persons with pressing legal needs go without legal representation. A shockingly high percentage have no choice but to represent themselves in landlord-tenant court and in cases of domestic violence. This in a community which, as I mentioned earlier, has the highest number of lawyers on a per capita basis in the country. Many of their needs will be in areas within your practice, and they will be familiar to you. But you could decide to offer help in a new area. And there are programs that will teach you what you need to know so that your pro bono work will be up to par with your billed work, as it should be. Those of you who have language skills are sorely needed. I have been addressing new members of the bar for 30 years now. And I invariably talk about pro bono service because the need is so great. I would like to mention several items from the report of the DC Access to Justice Commission, which was created by this court 20 years ago to bring together judges, members of the bar, legal service providers, academics, and community representatives to tackle the lack of legal representation and other obstacles that hinder access to court and other recourse that is designed to protect important rights to shelter, to education, to physical safety, health, and to families. We live in such a thriving city of professional and high-powered individuals that we tend to forget that not all of our neighbors are participating in that privileged life. As the report, Delivering Justice, reminds us, over 100,000 DC residents live in poverty and are more likely to experience civil legal problems. Poverty itself impedes their ability to address and recover from those problems. The challenges of poverty are compounded by life circumstances that create additional barriers for thousands. Over 70,000 district residents are elderly. Nearly 41,000 are limited English proficient. Tens of thousands live with a disability. 15% are immigrants who may be in a vulnerable status. The report finds that even though our legal service providers have increased the number of staff and the number of clients they serve through full representation, the mounting legal needs of district residents continue to outpace the resources they have available to meet those needs. Most striking is the data received from the DC courts and the DC Office of Administrative Hearings, showing the rates of lack of representation. While some percentages have decreased since the Commission's report, they are still staggeringly high. 97% in small estate probate matters, 83 to 93% for litigants in family matters, about 88% of tenants in eviction cases, 88% of petitioners in domestic violence cases, and even higher, 95% for the respondents in those domestic violence cases. All those people, those high percentages, have no lawyer. Even on appeals, where the rules that govern presentation of cases are less apparent to a layperson, in some types of matters, 50 to 90% of parties are going it alone when their housing is at stake, in family matters, in probate matters. The need is also evidenced by the thousands of litigants who visit the court's self-help centers each year seeking help. We are continually trying to address these needs, but we cannot do it without your help. And I should tell you that the numbers in the District of Columbia are not unique. They are a reflection of what happens throughout the country. So wherever you're from, and wherever you might end up practicing law, if it's not here, the unmet need for legal representation is truly sobering. So that's the bad news. But there's also good news, and you are part of the good news. Lawyers of the DC Bar have a long tradition of providing pro bono legal services to the economically disadvantaged. As a result, there are many programs here for pro bono services available through the DC Bar, through voluntary bar associations, through law firms. They run the gamut from helping one person navigate a claim for disability compensation to representing an abused or neglected child, to assisting an immigrant seeking asylum from persecution in another country. You might be helping a person sort through what appears to a lay person to be an incomprehensible and devastating problem. But to your trained legal mind, you could help resolve what are many times fairly minor knots that can nonetheless tie up a person's life. Or you could be writing a brief for a person on death row. The gamut is wide. Another way is through service to the courts directly by volunteering to take over representation of pro se litigants in civil litigation. Cases handled represent the broad spectrum of civil litigation in the district at the trial and appellate levels. They include prisoner cases, workplace and domestic disputes, and administrative cases, among others. I urge you to consider how you can help represent a person in need. You can obtain information from the DC Bar's Pro Bono Committee. They will have a representative at the course for new admittees that you will soon be taking. From local legal service providers, through local bar associations, or through the DC Bar's Pro Bono website. Explore these opportunities or come up with your own. If you end up practicing in another jurisdiction, see what you can do there because they need you. But in your practice, carry on this bar's outstanding tradition of service. When you do, you will realize that you will be gaining much for yourself as well. Many of us, and I include myself and other judges, look back over our professional careers and what we have accomplished and ponder whether the many sacrifices were worth it. Often we find that the most satisfying work professionally and personally were the efforts made in cases we handled on a pro bono basis. It reminds all of us that notwithstanding caricatures of lawyers as self-serving and money-grabbing, law can indeed be a noble profession that furthers values of fairness and justice that we hold dear. I bet those were the values that motivated many of you. They were the values that motivated me to study law in the first place. Go with that. And speaking of what is important as you go forward, have a life outside of your law practice, a rich personal life with your friends and your family. Spend time with them. They have supported and helped you during your law studies. They will hear you complain often enough about the long hours at work and about the difficulties of the job market. Have a life. Being a lawyer is a terrific thing, but it is not the only thing. Again, on behalf of the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, we welcome you to practice in the District of Columbia and wish you all the best in your practice here. Thank you.
This honorable court is now adjourned.